So, hello everyone. We have David with us today, and I'll start this podcast by letting David go ahead and introduce himself.
Sure. Hello, I'm David Pereira, product leader with 15 years of experience from Brazil to Germany, worked from startups to scale ups. Currently, I am CEO of Moco, but I have been doing many other things like sharing knowledge on the internet. I love helping product people grow. So generally what I do is sharing the mistakes I did and helping people learn from them and do differently and not face the blows I had to take.
Yeah, that's really helpful of you, David. Can you go ahead and maybe help us understand about what your journey has been, how you're able to start, and how you have got over there?
So it's a little bit of, fun things. I never planned anything very precise in my life. Actually, I'm very lazy to make plans. So I like working on myself. When I was younger, what happened? I was 17 and a friend of mine started working on a computer store. He was assembling computer and he told me, yeah, it's super cool doing this thing. I can make some introductions to you. What do you think about it? I said, wow, that sounds cool. And then I went there and had a chat with the store owner and he let me join there. And I got super excited about playing with computers and doing these things. And back then I wanted to study computer science, but there was one thing missing and it's called money. I didn't have that. My parents didn't have that. So it wouldn't be possible for me. And the life is full of things. And within this friend of mine, we went to a rock concert in one point. And as we went to the rock concert, we missed our ride to go back. So I had to go to the bus station and the others there. And as I went to the bus station, there was a poster saying like information industrial something. And it was a new course 30 kilometers from my town. And it was a state course. And that was about teaching people how to code. And I said, "Oh, that sounds cool. It's free. It's around here." So I talked to my parents. They supported me. So I went to study there out of the blue. So I decided I had just finished high school, and then I went there straight ahead. And I really like this thing of coding. So it's the moment I started learning how to code. I started creating some things. I built some websites. Then I got my first job eventually as a software engineer. Then in parallel, I did computer science and so on. And I worked as a software engineer for a few years. Then another thing happened. I was like quite annoying software engineer. I even got the nickname of Mr. Y because I asked too many questions. And people sometimes even told me it's not your job to ask questions, it's your job to code. I said, I think my job is to create something people use. If I don't understand, I should not create it. They didn't like that. But it's still, well, I was fine. I was having some fun. It was good. But then I wanted to do something else in my life, which was learn English. I could kind of understand, but I couldn't speak actually. So I wanted to study abroad, but didn't have enough resources for that. So I went to an immersion course. And again, my unplanned life took me another turn. During this immersion course, what I didn't know, people who were there were quite high level. I was, I think, 23, something like this, or 22 maybe. And the last day I had to present something. And then I decided to present my work. So I said, I'm going to present what I'm working on. And to be easy, then one guy came, pat my shoulder and said, I want to talk to you. And I said, all right, let's have a talk. And he told me, I want you to come and work with me. And I have something called product owner. I said, that sounds cool, but I have no idea what a product owner is. He said, you don't need to worry about it. It is about communication. And you have something I like, which is simplifying communication. You make complex things simple. I said, if you say that. So he believed in me. He saw something I didn't know I had. Then I moved to Sao Paulo. That's where I moved from my hometown, 20,000 people, to metropolis of Sao Paulo of 20 million. So there I started developing my career as a product owner. So backlog owner in the beginning because I didn't know what that was. So I went product owner, product manager, head of products, and so on. Then a few years later, I got the chance of moving to Germany. So then here I worked in different scenarios and so on. And again, coming to Germany was something unexpected. I got a recruiter. contacted me on LinkedIn and said, well, let's have a talk. Let's see what happens. And then I ended up here, got to know my wife in Germany. We got married. So life took a different turn. It was quite good. And and eventually I decided to start sharing my learnings and to start blogging and all of these things. And last year I had made a decision that I would not work for any company anymore. I would only consult and I would give trainees and this kind of things. So I quit my full-time job and I got some clients. I was working with them and it was so cool. And then I got this cool client. Tomoko was a client of mine and I was the interim CPO there. And I was working. It was quite cool. And what I liked about Tomoko was the opportunity of creating a product from scratch. So there is an investment available, and we can create a product from the beginning, which is a rare chance that you have the room to create a product in a place that innovation is lacking. So I started getting excited about it, but I was still an interim CPO, and I would be there for a year. And and the investors start asking me to go full time, and then I was telling them it's not an option, and they kept insisting and so on. Then once they made the offer to come in as a CEO, and I said, that's quite of a big shoes to me. The CPO is already uh, too big, and this one is something out of my league. I don't even know what I would do. But then they said, we can help you. You know? And then I started thinking about it and thinking and thinking. The one thing that clicked in my mind was, if I am the CEO, I can create this space where that I always dreamed of. And then people can bring their best selves. And I always see how it is. And I said, the worst thing that can happen is it doesn't work. Then I go back to my product life. And then I decided to give it a shot. So I gave it a shot this year, February, and it has been fun. So that's kind of that story of my life.
Yeah, I think that's quite a story, quite interesting. So I think, yeah, but you have gone up and up from there onwards only. So yeah, David, I think that was really interesting. Just one more question from the same particular part is that you have transitioned from like a product owner to then to a product at some company and then consulting. Then you talked about being a CPO at this company and then CEO. What are the differences that you have seen? Like how, if you have to evolve in this career, what are the skills that you see that are remembered for you to like important for you to get from one part of your journey to the other part?
Yeah. Communication decision making is quite important. So when you are a software engineer, you need to be sharp on identifying solutions and crafting the solution and so on. You don't need to identify the problem itself because someone is going to identify, but you have to understand the problem. When it comes to the product owner, you need to develop something I call as business savvy. So you have to understand what the business is about and connect the dots and then see what are the opportunities that could drive business value, could drive customer value, and so on. So it's fine about this. And all of this requires strong communication. Because I remember once some people start asking me, what do you do? In the beginning, I would say as a product owner, I talk. I talk and I talk, and I talk a lot. I said the magic happens when I can align this. And that is one of the key things. And then it comes the ability of saying no. Because if a product owner keeps saying yes, then you distract the team. So you need to keep focus. And it's leading by context. So that's something that happens. And then as you grow to head of products, it starts getting a little bit tricky because you will not be the one getting things done anymore. So you will be a little bit farther, but you still need to set the environment for the teams to work. One of the key skills in this case will be coaching because it's very easy to give answers to people. So they come to me and I remember that they would say, how do I do that? And sometimes I jump to the answer because I knew the answer, but that's not how people learn. So you need to learn how to ask questions that make them reflect, and then they will come up with the answers. So of course you need to provide guidance, but you need to know which guidance to provide and so on and so on. So it is about coaching and knowing which questions to ask and so on, and when to give a question and when to give an answer. So that is something that I learned on the way. And as a CPO, the game is different because you get closer to the executive level. So you need to learn how to um, be very to synthesize the communication, to be very sharp, directly on point, and so on. And you need to be very careful not to start creating exhaustive business plan and all of these things and so on, because a lot of people are going to ask you to do it. And it's very convenient for you to do it because then people stop asking. So you need to help them understand what is the benefit in working a different way. Problem is people don't like being lectured. So the magic happens when you figure out how to meet them one step ahead where they are, extend a hand and like move. So it requires a lot of patience. It requires understanding the scenario. So it's having a global view of the whole picture and seeing where you picture yourself and how can you create the space where a product can grow. So that's what I see for the CPO role. And for the CEO, I'm still learning. So I'm trying different things here. But in general, it's about the context. So you need to set the context, clarity, consistency, communicate where people need to focus on and where not to focus, and also say about the trade-offs. Setting like what do we do? What are our culture? It's a lot about setting the culture and living upon that.
Yes, I think really, really insightful and helpful, David. One extension question from the same that you have talked about, like leading from the context and understanding the context correct. Maybe can you expand upon the same with one or two examples from your career?
Sure. In one of the places we worked, I remember receiving roadmaps all the time, and the roadmap would have the features. So this would be leading with clear directions, like leading with plans. So you define what to do and so on. I remember one of the leaders coming with a roadmap with 15 features we had to deliver by the end of the quarter. And I asked, "Well, how do we know we are successful?" And then the leader said, "You know you are successful when people in Brazil start understanding how to drink wine, because now Brazilians actually they only like drinking beer. They don't drink wine because they don't understand. They think wine is fancy, but actually wine is healthy. So we want to bring this culture." Then I started reformulating the question. I said, "So you mean we should focus on people who don't drink wine, but are curious to learn. So we want to educate them." I said, "Yes, that's what you want." I said, "So we are not focusing on people who already drink wine." I said, "No, these ones are, we are not interested. We're interested in the ones who are not. We're trying to convert them and show a different." Said, "Okay, so we are successful and we get these people." Yes. I said, "So that is the context." Said, "Yes, that is the context." Said, "Okay. So that is the most important part, setting the context. Where are we playing? Where we are not playing, and what can we do?" And I remember one of the goals there was we need to increase our growth. I said, increasing the growth is quite easy. He said, "Well, what are you going to do?" I said, "I can just drop the prices and then a lot of people will buy and increase the growth." He said, "Then you're going to hit profitability dramatically. You're not allowed to do that." I said, "So this is not a trade-off I have." I said, "Yes, you don't have this trade-off. You cannot drop profitability." I said, "What can I do then?" And I said, "Well, you could increase the acquisition costs because we have already a quite sustainable one. So if you would bump that 10%, we would leave it." So we have this trade-off we could make then. So we can bump this. So that is what I call context. So you give like the cards, understanding the cards you have in the game and the cards you don't have. Then you see how you can play the game. The problem is sometimes you need to ask for that. And many people don't know how to ask for that. And a leader should provide that. So I try being the leader who provides this context, saying who we serve, when we serve, who we don't serve, and so on. Because I imagine, what if I didn't ask the question? Actually, if I had done all the features that were in the roadmap, nothing would have happened because actually we ditched the roadmap and we did something other than that.
Yeah. I think that's really good. And yeah, I could also understand that a lot of people are talking about best practices, but one best practices could be a best practices, could be a best practice in some set of context, but it could not be a good practice in some other set of context. So I could completely relate to that. Just talking about like the same one point from this particular conversation, that you talked about that, yes, you have to say no, and you also have to make sure that you are asking for context and asking for question. So as a leader of the company, maybe who is a CEO or CPO, how do you set up that kind of culture that people are willing enough to go ahead and ask these questions, and they do not feel like vulnerable that I'm going ahead and maybe what people would go ahead and think about me. So how do you set up that kind of culture?
You're learning. But one of the things I realize is like the tonality. So if you say, we are going this direction, people are not going to ask. They will trust you. But if you say, here's what I learned. So I believe, so you start using words like this is the best direction. What do you think? And then you let people speak up. You may have made up your mind, but you want to hear from them. And it's about knowing also when to ask a question, how to formulate. Because if you put in a finite way of that statement, it's very unlikely. And sometimes I did some things. For example, there was a situation with one of my team members that I asked for change, and they jumped straight to the change. But I intentionally asked for change that made no sense. And then they were going to. I said, "Hey, you didn't ask me why. So I wonder what drives you to act." I said, "Well, you're saying that, so I imagine it's important to you." I said, "But you didn't understand why I want that." I said, "Yeah, but it was clear that it's important." I said, "But still, I want you to ask why." And then he asked, and I explained. Said, "Yeah, but it makes no sense." I said, "Yeah, that's what I want to see more." So it's a lot of emphasizing. So what I created, for example, in the beginning when I joined the company was Friday Q&A. So anyone can ask any question anytime. So I'm just showing up there with the other members from the leadership team to hear what I have to say. So it's transparency. And I made it easy. They could also ask anonymous question. There was a form. They could just put question there. It doesn't matter. The question will get answered. So it's showing that we are open, transparency. It takes a while to build this openness. Um, but we had, for example, feedback training. And it's by being brave and standing in front of everyone and saying, what you learned? What were your blind spots? Making yourself vulnerable. Because if you make yourself vulnerable, then people start seeing you as a human, not just as the leader, the top leader that they have. So you need to help them see you as a human, like vulnerable. You also make mistakes. And I tell them all the time, I'm going to make mistakes. And if you see that, please tell me. I want to know that.
Yes. I think those are some really helpful points, and I very actionable advice as well. So yeah, David. So like jumping to next set of questions, David. So you have been talking on your blog a lot about product strategy, what is product strategy, what it is not. So maybe can you tell maybe a brief about what do you think product strategy is? Because there are so many definitions of strategy, vision, mission, and so many things out there. So if you can give us like a clear definition which people can understand. And also, what do you think is a good strategy and bad strategy? If you can include one example as well.
Sure. Yeah, connecting to one comment you made about best practices, people keep asking and so on. I used to write a lot about best practice, but there was one thing that happened in the USA last week. As I was in the conference, someone said, the only certainty we have is change, which is true. And I know that. But he said, when we say best practice, we put as a finite thing. It's the ultimate practice. He said, maybe we need to change this to better practice. It's better than what I'm practicing right now, or leading practice. These are what is leading right now, but doesn't mean it's going to lead forever. So going from that, what I see is a leading strategy. Like, what is product strategy? Product strategy is a way of creating the constraints for teams to play the game, the digital product manager. A good product strategy will lead to the smooth decision making. A bad product strategy will lead to confusion or a lack of one. Teams don't know what to do. They keep asking themselves, should we do this or should we do that? What might make sense? They simply don't know. So the strategy is all about decision making. It's about the simplifying that. One of the things that happen quite often is a confusion. So you have the vision. The vision may be something a few years from now. So it's where you want to land. So the most, if you look, for example, in a vision, it would position some characteristics you want to see in the future. I'll give you an example of a restaurant. There was this restaurant in Spain called El Bulli, and El Bulli was like the best restaurant in the world 5 times. How did they get there? Their vision was to have the most authentic dining experience in the world. How would they get there? That was the strategy. The strategy is what put you there. But one thing that is a mistake about strategy is thinking that once you set the strategy, you don't change. But the truth is, you keep changing that as you learn, because product strategy is what enables delivery. I say that product strategy set the conditions to create value. Product discovery uncover what drives value, and product delivery creates value. But when you discover, you might realize that your strategy has some things that are hindering you to create value. So you adapt your strategy. The same is going to happen with delivery. So you adapt your strategy. But this strategy evolves slowly. You're not going to adapt that every second week, but you start with something, you will have assumption and you go. But coming back to El Bulli, being the most authentic restaurant in the world, what was their strategy? Their strategy was to go on the high-end customers who value this kind of experience. So their customers were very clear. If we convert to current currency, they would pay around 400 euros per dinner. And there was another thing that they would do. They would not cook the classic recipes. Their differentiation, clearly in the strategy, you need to know how you differentiate. They would create dishes. So they would always create new dishes, and you would never be able to repeat a dinner there. And the dinner was 30 courses. Another differentiation, the chef would decide what you eat. He would just say, if you have allergies, if you are vegetarian, vegan, or something, and they would prepare for you the 30-course dinner. And one thing of the strategy that they want to differentiate, they were open only 6 months a year, and the other 6 months they would be closed because they were experimenting. It was all about experimental cuisine. So they would redefine things. So they were the first in the world to start doing that. But that was their strategy. And then they realized actually, they started closing in the beginning for 2 months. And that didn't work. They didn't have enough things. Then they adapt 4 months, 6 months, and they start trying different things. They started adapting and they evolved their strategy. That is what a good strategy looks like, because it enables to discover what makes sense, and then it enables you later to deliver value. A bad strategy tries to address everything. This strategy was clear enough to the ones value finding. But what if you try addressing the ones that actually just want to have a nice dinner? They wouldn't find a balance because it's two different games. They would need another restaurant. It's another company they would be talking about, not this one. And that's what I see as a mistake of a strategy. Having a piece that is bigger that you can bite. And then for sure, you won't know where you bite. So you're going to bite many things. And then the result is you're not going to get anything out of that.
Yes. I think being like focused and being true to your value and creating that differentiation, being okay with like, yes, this is what I'm doing, this is what I'm not doing, also is like a critical part of the strategy. So taking those typical decisions, right?
Yes, correct.
Yeah, amazing. That's cool. And one more thing, David, that you have been like coaching a lot of people into product management out there. So what is like the audience that you go ahead and teach? Like where do they come from? What is the specific audience that you teach? So that I can go ahead and maybe ask some of the questions around that profile as well.
I have from product owners with 2-3 years of experience to seniors who want to move to leaders like 7-8 years of experience, and also some product leaders, but mainly on the product owner, product managers, let's say 2-3 years to 7-8 years.
Oh, understood. And talking about this, like you are working in like a Western Europe out there. So how do you see job market over there? Like, is it evolving? Is it difficult? Or if someone wants to get into a senior role over there, what would be the strategy that you would suggest him right now in this scenario?
So it depends a lot, actually, because in Europe, mainly in Germany, I can talk a lot about Germany. People are still quite attached to plans. So you have a big chance of getting a job if you answer how you're going to deal with predictability. So if you give consistent answers, which I would call almost all of them as anti-patterns, as how you create feature roadmaps, how you hold teams accountable, how do you you ensure that teams deliver consistently, and so on and so on. There's a big chance you get the job, but then you are gonna do more or less the same. And there's also a big chance you get the job if you make them think. So I remember a situation I had. It was for a senior product manager position. The hiring manager started looking at my CV and asking questions. What did I do there? What did it was clearly searching for these characteristics I just mentioned. And then I said, it's not working, this interview. I said, what is you were saying? I said, it's not working. And then he said, what do you mean? I mean the following. You are asking about my past experience and you don't know how I'm going to work with you. They are totally different business related. I said, what if we just do something here together? I said, tell me a problem you have right now. And then I tell you how I'm going to do with that. Then the person was, oh, what do you say? I said, yeah, just tell me. I took a pen and I went to the whiteboard and said, so tell me what you're trying to achieve. I said, okay, I'm going to tell you what we did and I want to see how you are going to address. And they gave me a scenario, said, this is what we want to do. And then I was asking questions and so on. I drew a mind map and so on. And I created some assumptions on that and then prioritized assumptions. And I said, here is where I would start. I would start doing this. I would start testing these assumptions and saying what is true and what is not. And probably I would discover something that neither you nor me know right now, as we don't know what we don't know. And then we can create something that we don't imagine right now, but that's what would be the magic. And we had this conversation. The interview was supposed to last 45 minutes. It lasted 1 hour, 50 minutes. And after that, I got a job offer. Not the same day, but I had another talk with the team and so on. But it's about being authentic, being yourself. So show what you can do, not just tell about your past experience and twisting, right? Not just being the interviewee there, sitting and letting them interview you, this classic. That worked for me in Germany because it's very unexpected. It's not, it's classic here. Hiring is very classic. So I did that. It works pretty well.
Yes, I think we are observing the similar kind of model at in India as well. Okay, so there are candidates on the side, as in US, as in Western Europe, and also in the Indian part out there, also in some part of Australia, where there are like big tech companies out there. We are able to see that yes, people are now following, like all the interviewers are following a particular kind of structure. Like yes, this should be a product strategy question, and this should be like a product design question. This is how I'm going to ask the question. This is the template. And now we see that people who are actually not following that, they are giving an out of the box answer. Then interviewer is really surprised that yes, this is how they can go ahead and add a lot of value out there, which is like out of the box thinking. When this all of this like this revolution of all these templated answers started, it was a unique thing. And now I think doing the real work, getting out and maybe discussing with your stakeholders, I think that is a real work out there. Yes, so I completely align with that as well. And David, one more thing, that people who are like taking coaching from you, which is people who have 2-3 years of experience or 4-5 years experience, who are looking to get into more senior roles now, what are the common mistakes that you see they are making right away so that they can go ahead and maybe understand about the same and acknowledge the same?
Yeah, the questions are pretty similar. Like, how do I manage my backlog? My soft engineers want more detail. How do I give them more information? How do I write user stories in a way they don't ask me questions? And then I could just give the answers. But another question, like, how do I manage the stakeholders' requirements? And then I started, let's just go back. What is your role? And then comes sometimes the answer. Serve the business. I said, no, it's missing something here. Let's go back. Why do you serve the business? And then I start helping them seeing that. And then people come back, my role is to drive value for customers and then business will collect the value as well. I said, yes, now now we're talking there. Then I go to the backlog. Said, you said that developers want more detail from you. What is the job of a software engineer? And say, well, it's code. So I give them requirements and they code. I said, that is the job of a coder, not a software engineer. Tell me, what is the job of a software engineer? So I need to help them understand this. But the challenge is like what I see is like I named the product manager as a 3-step thing. So the first one is the bridge, and this is the bridge in a bad way. You bridge communication between business and the tech. And like, what do? You kind of you translate business into technical requirements or whatever, and so on, and you expect them to deliver. So you become a bottleneck very, very quickly. And I have been there. The second one is when you understand the business and so on, and you understand how the team works, you start acting as an orchestra conductor. So you don't touch any instrument, but you ensure that the music is pleasant, it's beautiful. And this works well, but you position yourself in a higher level than the team, as if you know best. But it still works. It will be efficiently. Some people will be unhappy because there is a kind of a somewhat higher level, but it works. But the better one is what I call as a jazz player. You come there and you just start the music, setting the context, as I say. So you start setting the context, and then everyone joins you and starts creating the music together. And the result is the music that no one would imagine that is possible, but you can only do with the teamwork. But the thing is, you don't start as a jazz player, you don't start as a conductor. You will go through all of these things most probably. So I help them understand where they are. So I have, for example, a set of 47 skills that product managers need to have, and I ask them to evaluate. And I ask them, like, what would help you at this moment? And then I position like generally 10 things. I said, no, you need to choose one. And they say, well, I don't know. I said, you need to choose, not me. I can help you understand what is behind it, but you choose one, and then I help you grow in this one. Then we go to another and another, but you're not going to take 10 at the same time. It's focus. And one of the key parts of your job is focus. So let's start training to focus here right now. So focus is another challenge. Like, I cannot set a sprint goal. I have too many things to deal with. So these are the classic things.
Right. And out of all of the skills that you have mentioned in that particular order out there, is domain vector expertise also a skill that a product manager should have, or would you consider it something else?
That's quite an interesting one. So the domain expertise, of course, it depends a lot on the domain, but what I learned is the following. A product manager with a high domain expertise, but lack of product management expertise will struggle more than a product manager with strong product management expertise. Why is that? Because, for example, if you know how to connect the pieces of the puzzle, you know, for example, how to connect the strategy, the discovery, and the delivery, you know the questions you need to ask. And it's very naive for any product manager to think you have all the answers. So by not having the domain expertise, you are going to go after the answers. You're going to talk to business stakeholders, SMEs, subject matter experts, and so on. So you're going to get the answers. So you start building partnerships. That's what's going to happen. You need to know the questions to ask. When it comes to the one with the domain, there's a danger. There's a danger of thinking you know it all. So you may avoid partnering with the others because you think you know. So then you don't do that. And there's a chance that you are going to struggle with the product management expertise. But of course, I'm not saying that domain is irrelevant, but this is something you can build up, and you can cover that up by partnering with stakeholders. And on the other hand, the lack of product management expertise is not something you can cover that up.
Understood. Yeah. So I think now we can maybe talk about more specific. I could understand there are so many skills out there, but we'll have to be specific about some. And I understand it depends on the context, but still I'll go ahead and ask this question, which is, what are like the few maybe top qualities that you look out for when you are hiring for a product manager? And I'm talking about an entry level product manager, not a senior one. I could understand that will depend a lot on the context out there.
Yeah, when I'm searching for talent, I search for the communication. So I want to see what I call if the person is able to communicate on demand. So
Mm.
I ask a question, um, and then I want the person to give a very succinct answer that I can understand. And then if I want to know more, I ask, and then the person gives more detail. Because I see some people overloading me with information that I didn't ask for. So I want to know how they deal with communication. So that is one thing. And the other is about decision making. So I want to see how easy is it for them to decide. Is it something that they need a lot of analysis or they can decide and so on? So this is quite important. And then it comes the leadership skills. So leadership, of course, incorporates many aspects, but one of them is very related to the ability of setting a goal, focusing on the goal, and blocking the distractions from that.
Mhm.
One thing that I do in the interview is asking the interviewee to lead the interview. So I asked them like, all right, so you are applying for a product manager. I believe great product managers are leaders. So I want you to lead the interview. So I asked them to lead, and I see how comfortable they feel in doing that. And I really go as they. So if they want to use all time to ask their questions, I will say, aha, I understand. So they didn't give me any time to ask questions. So I pay attention on this. So I do a very different way. So these are the skills. So for me, it is about communication, decision making, leadership. These are the core ones. And then it comes to two others that I try getting that in the interview. It is the ability to learn and the willingness to learn. So how do I test that? The willingness to learn, I will cause a conflict during the interview. And I want to see how they react. Do they get curious? Do they try to understand what is behind it? Do they try to solve the conflict or not? And then I'm going to give some feedback and I want to see if they're going to change or not, and so on. So I try seeing that. It's, of course, it's a limited space that you can see that. But for example, when I work on a case and so on, I generally ask like, share with me a story where there was a failure and you contributed to that. And I want to know what you learned from it. And then they start saying something, and then I try finding something I disagree, and then I poke that. And then I start poking, and some people get resistant. I say, okay, so they are not curious about it. They are not curious to understand. Well, they start defending. And I don't ask the why question. I don't ask, why did you do it? I say, what made you do that? Because I would do differently. And then I said, no, no, so these are justified. But these are the things I try finding because if the person will have these skills, then I think the rest we can develop.
Cool, cool, cool. And also like you go ahead and definitely like if someone is starting their job, they might not be very good with some of these kind of skills out there. So what would you suggest to people who are looking to evolve into these skills, which is improving their decision making, improving their communication abilities? So how do you help? What do you suggest them in order to learn these kind of skills? And also how do they assess themselves?
Yeah, I suggest by simplifying and trying it out. So it says like in your day to day, just pay attention where you struggle to make a decision and reflect what is holding you back. What would happen if you just make the call? I say like for sure there's a moment you're gonna plan a holiday. You're gonna play some vacations. So how do you do that? So are you researching for everything before you book the first flight ticket or train ticket or whatever, or you just do it? Reflect on that on your day to day because it's about your life and so decision making it's present all the time in our life. Say you're going out. How long does it take for you to choose your outfit? Think about it, and then you write at the end of the day like, here are the moments I struggled to make decisions. Here are the moments I didn't struggle. So compare, learn, write it down because writing is quite powerful. But the secret is you need to take one skill at a time. If you're working on the decision making, then you focus, for example, for months, paying attention on that and say, I want to improve this. Then you put like the pattern you identified and then what you want to see. For example, whenever I have a decision that impacts more people can happen. I take very long to decide and I don't ask questions. So you could say, that's the pattern I do. That's what I'm doing. But what I want to see, whenever I have a decision that impacts people, I ask them and decide swiftly.
Understood. Understood. Yeah, I think that's some really actionable as well, which is about improve yourself through writing and then make sure that before you are taking the action, reflect and take a step back and make understand how you're taking that decision. Then that is going to improve. Yes. And similar question, like related to the same part that yes, I could understand that you can assess the communication abilities or maybe some decision making abilities by talking to the person out there. Okay. But right now in the market that we are in, there's a lot of competition. Like people are sending their resumes, they are doing so many things just in order to get to an interview. So what would you suggest to people? Like what are the non-traditional ways that they can like go ahead and adopt in order to get a chance at least to get an interview with a person like you or maybe at any kind of company out there?
Yeah. So there are different ways. One of them is attending conferences. So attending conference, sit with people you don't know, keep exchanging. It's the networking. So keep networking. And then someone may open you the door, as it happened with me. So that is the power of network. Because in the end, we hire people who we think we can trust. Of course, companies like Google, Amazon, they have a very strict hiring process. But for entry, I would not recommend that. I would recommend a smaller company, and then you can go for that. But one is the network, and the other is being brave and bold. So I had the situation, for example, I was in a big corporation for a while, and it was when I joined, actually, the first one I mentioned. I went there as a product owner. It was fun. It was cool. I was, of course, struggling, but then the company got acquired by a gigantic corporation with 100,000 employees. And they started working with Safe. And you know me beyond Safe. So I said, I don't want to work with Safe. I cannot accept this. And I started working with that. To my life became a nightmare. And I said, I need to quit this. And I wanted to go to a startup. I had experience, so that was the thing. But the startup started to look at me. You have no experience with startup. So what makes you interesting for us? And I told them because I learn fast, and because I am gonna outwork everyone here. You can be sure. I'm gonna give my best. I'm quite interested in making this happen. It's a great opportunity. I said, and you know what? I can come here and if it doesn't work, there's a probation period. You just let me go. I don't care. And to show you that I really want to make it possible, I can take a cut on my current salary of 10% to show you I really want this. And then after that, you match my salary. I said, I'm interested in the learning possibilities I have here. And then I named all the learning possibilities. And then I did that. But one thing that I did differently also that many people don't do, they go for the interview and so on, they send resumes and blah, blah, blah. But when I arrived in the startup, I had already tested their service. So I arrived there, I tested their service and everything. And they said, what I see is a great potential. But there's some things here that I learned, there's some hiccups. Here are the list. And then I point the list and I said, here's what I would do differently. And then they got interested. They just annoyed me about the experience. And in the end, they made an offer to me that was even higher than my salary. I didn't need to take the cut. So, but offering that, showing the intention, I would take if it was necessary. I was not manipulating, but I would take. But I knew. So what people can do if they are in a B2C process, try understanding the business, try seeing where you can improve. And in a B2B, try seeing where the communication is unclear. Big chance if you look at the website, you're going to see that the one-liner is missing, the value proposition is unclear, and then make suggestions. Do something that most people are not going to do. I always say, become the customer, and then you can go there with different eyes. And you don't need to answer only questions that are asked. You can show something. So interact with people, try getting a call with some of them. Generally, this is what I have seen working. But what I see that doesn't work, I get a lot of CVs, and people just drop the CV at me and say, "Hey, I'm searching for a new position. I'm very happy if you can consider my CV." I just ignore it because I say you are asking something I'm not considering. But once there was a person who said, "Hey, I noticed you are working on this and so on," and I couldn't understand what the value proposition is. I couldn't understand this. So I have some ideas. Maybe you want to hear that. So there were something that triggered curiosity to me, and then I sent my Calendly. We had a 15 minutes chat and so on. And then the person said, I'm searching for a job, maybe. So then I said, oh, all right, that's a PM strategy. And it got me.
Correct, correct, correct. And also, this is also like a very big theme that we are seeing. So we conduct a cohort for product managers, and where we suggest them. And this is like a story of one of the students in one of our first cohort. What he did was he wanted to work for a very aspirational company in India. The name is Cred. So it's a good startup and being growing at a very good pace. And that period of time, they were like really very popular. So he wanted to make sure that he want to become a product manager at that company, and their like stakes were very higher. Okay, and that person was coming from a development background, like a year or a couple of experiences out there. So he thought, how should I go ahead and do? So what he did was he imagined that he has already become a product manager over there. And then he has created something that I would go ahead and if I were the product manager, I would go ahead and do these kind of things. Similar to what you are suggesting, which is like making sure that yes, finding the problems and then making sure that how would you go ahead and address the same. And then he has gone ahead, done the same, created a good, like a small prototype or a website. And then he has gone ahead, approached multiple product managers and the leaders of the company. And right now, like that person like definitely became the product manager over there. Right now, he is looking after one of the biggest part over there, which is like the e-commerce section where they are going to make most of their money. So that has been a story. And that is what we suggest to other cohort members as well. Make sure that you imagine yourself that you are already a product manager, what you are going to do in your first 6 months. Articulate that, send it to multiple people. Maybe some people will go ahead and give you a chance out there. So yeah, I think completely aligned with that. We have seen multiple proofs of the same. Definitely for people who are coming from very non-traditional backgrounds for product management. Yes. With that being said, David, one last question for you. That you are also like a creator alongside, which is apart from your job, which is like a CEO, you are also going ahead and creating such value for the community. How do you balance your time? What is your strategy out there?
Focus is my strategy. So what I do generally, like first of all, is because writing for me is the passion. So I really love doing that. So I get energy out of this. So I also give cohorts and so on. And the general cohorts take place after my working time at 7 p.m. and so on, after making many decisions and many things. But then I enter in this cohort. I live without. I live with more energy than I started. So it gives me a lot of energy. And writing, I do it in focus time, for example. My wife is a makeup artist. Generally, she has some clients during the weekend or something like this. While she's doing makeup on her clients, I'm writing. So I take an early morning on Sunday or Saturday, and I go there 3 hours in a row. Generally, it takes me for a blog post of 5 minutes, 1.5 hours to write something like this, maybe 1 hour, it depends. And then I schedule all posts on LinkedIn. So I schedule the posts for the upcoming weeks. I reflect on what I want to say, what is something that I would like to do, and then I do that. So there is an investment of 3-4 hours during the weekend, and during the week I just check in the morning. Generally, I have some rules for myself. I want to start the day in a way that I am prepared for the day. So first things are for just myself. I stretch in the morning, I meditate, I do some exercises, then I have a shower, then I have breakfast with my wife. We always have breakfast together. And then I say, all right, now I'm ready for the day. So when I'm ready for the day, by this time it will be around 8 a.m. or something like this, it's the moment that I will start doing something. So I will check LinkedIn, I will check a message and so on. And then after that, I start working. So there is a daily investment, but it's 30 minutes of focus time. And then in these 30 minutes, I get everything answered. Then I go for that. So I realize that you don't need to pay to do like I call as the stock market thing. You will open all the time and see what's going on here, what's going on. No, you just need to do it very focused. And if you dedicate that focus time, it works pretty well. So that is my strategy: focus time during the weekend and 30 minutes a day.
Yeah, I could see like a lot of relatability out there. My wife she's also like a physiotherapist out there. So her clients are also available over the weekend. So I make sure that most of my classes are in the morning over the weekend so that she gets her time. I get her time. We also get like a time together. So I think I could relate to with that. So yeah, David, I think this was a super insightful conversation. I could see and I could understand that there are so many other stories that I could go ahead and listen from you. But I'll leave that for the later time out there. And this was really passionate conversation for me. I could relate with so many things and so many things that you are already doing, like things that are working in India. I could also see they're also working for the Germans as well. So I believe that was a really insightful conversation. I'll make sure that I'll add some of the resources that you are going to share with us in the description, so that if people want to go ahead and understand more about what you do, how do you coach people, they can go ahead and maybe reach out as well. So anything else you want to share with us?
Yeah, no, thanks. It was very good to exchange with you. So what I want to share is like I'm writing a book right now, The Entrapping Product Teams, Simplify What Others Complicate. So maybe I would just share the link of the book as well. It's upcoming. Then you can fill out the form, and once it's there, probably it will come up. Yeah, I intend to get this live either in spring next year or in the fall. So I don't know. I don't want to launch my book in summer. I want to have some holidays in summer as well. So I was I will aim for spring, like April next year, something like this. So maybe
Which is
then if people are curious, then they can learn more.
definitely. I'll make sure that I'll attaching that link and also send it to the newsletter folks out there. So thanks a lot, David. It was great having you on the conversation, and I look forward to having more conversations with you. Thanks a lot, David.
Thank you.